leader. It's interesting that you just saw the video that we did. It spoke about leadership in a certain way. And Mr. Bodhi earlier on spoke about change, some things that have been on my mind a lot. And this idea of leader, in fact, has been something that I don't think I've ever really been able to define. And I've been trying to define this for a while. So I'll tell you about the first time I heard about leader. It was when I was in school. And I became the head girl in my school, and my teacher, the principal, told me, okay, now you are the leader. I said, okay, that's great, but what does that really mean? What does it mean that I'm a leader because I'm a head girl? They're like, you'll find out. They gave me a badge, they gave me a sash, and I had all of these things that made me look different from my other classmates. And they gave me a set of responsibilities. So I had to make sure that there was discipline in school. I had to make sure that kids were coming in on time, and if they were not, I had to go and tell the teacher and principal about it. I got to stand in a special place in the morning assembly. I got to stand in front of the line every time our class was going anywhere. So automatically I began to see that I had these positions, I had this authority, and that's what made me a leader. So I said, okay. And I started looking around, and I realized that outside as well, when I looked at all of these symbols, these were the people that had authority, they had position, they were able to act in a certain way, and I said, okay, then these are leaders too. Politicians are leaders. And then I thought about our police, who also have positions, they have authority, they have power, and they might be leaders too, as well as our business leaders, who hold positions of certain authority, and they lead and they act in a certain way. And I said, okay, so they are leaders too. And the one thing they had in common was they had authority, and they were able to act in a certain way. And that was really how we defined power. So then I put these two together, and I said, okay, so that means leaders are people with power. And I was okay with this definition for a while, but then I started thinking about who really are the most influential people in today's day and age. Who are the ones who are out there and who we look up to as people who are making change happen? And then I saw this person. This person had no position and no authority. J.K. Rowling is an author, and she had led a very, very simple life before she released Harry Potter, and Harry Potter changed the world for all of us who read at that time. It changed what reading meant for kids across the world, and now we call her a leader. Similarly, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg was a student, just like I was at one point, just like many of you are, and he had no position of authority. He wasn't entitled to act in a certain way, but he made Facebook. And Facebook changed the world for all of us. It changed communication. It changed what we think of as social networking and keeping in touch with friends. And now we call him a leader. And then we have Jimmy Wales. Not many of you may know him, but he's the man who created Wikipedia. And that changed our life as well, right? That is how we find information. It's how people across the world put information together, and it's how people across the world find the information that they want. And we call him a leader. And then there's Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is the 10th most influential person of the 21st century, and my sister, my younger sister, was completely enamored by her for a long time, and I just couldn't figure out why. But then I realized that Lady Gaga was giving a message through her music and her work that be who you are. And she really lived that message, and over the years through her music, that's what she's done across the world. She's allowed people to be who they are by just supporting that, by supporting people in the way they look, in the attitudes they have, in the choices they make. And what was common about all of these people? No authority, no position of power, but they were leaders. What they had was change. All of them made change. And it was through that change they made, they impacted all of our lives in so many different ways. And that's what gave them power. And that's how they became leaders that we refer to today. So when I think about leadership now, I'm thinking, okay, so leaders are people who drive change. And maybe it's through that change that they get power. Maybe. Then this started making more sense to me because I thought about the people who I look up to as leaders. And one of the first names that come to mind, Gandhiji. Gandhiji was a lawyer when he came into India, but the change that he made, everything that he did, his fights for non-violence, for the freedom struggle, all of that change has impacted all of our lives, and that's what really made him a leader. So much so that his impact went on around the world, and Martin Luther King did the same thing for his people. He drove change, and that made him a leader. And of course, Mother Teresa, who worked to serve the people, and she created change as well. No position of authority, no power, but it was through that change that she led that she became a leader, and through that she empowered people. And she empowered people, so did Gandhiji, so did MLK. None of them really led change alone, but it was this large-scale change that is only possible because of the people they empowered on the way and the way they led it together. And when I think of some of the problems that we face today, and some of the problems that face our lives, I'm reminded of something that happened just this morning as I was coming here. I was in a taxi, and my taxi driver, Azad Sheikh, a couple of minutes after sitting in the taxi, he turned and asked me, he said, "How come you got permission to live in this house? It's like you're building Mahavir Sadhana, it's in front of a mandir. How did you get permission to live here? Are Muslims allowed here?" And I was like, you know, it took me a year. And it really did. It took my family an entire year to find a house to live in Bombay. Colaba, Bandra, Andheri, Vashi. We spent a year searching for a house that would allow a Muslim family to live in it. And that's a problem in today's day and age that we face. Educated families close their doors on us, saying that you're Muslim, we don't want you to stay here. And this taxi driver knew that as well. We got to talking, and then he shared an example of himself where he's an engineer, but he lost his job because his sister-in-law filed a case of dowry against him. And he ran to debt, he had a police complaint against him, and now his life is very different. He's driving, and that's what he does for a living. And that made me think a lot about those are the problems that we face today. And to me, both of those really are a result of the lack of education. And somebody needs to do something about that, and we need somebody to make that change happen, to change all of these mindsets and these problems that are in our lives today. That's pretty much why I joined Teach for India back in 2009. This fellowship where I was placed in a school in Dadar, and my kids came from the communities around Dadar station and Worli Chawls, and that's one student of mine, Mihir. When I met him in grade 2, Mihir didn't know his ABCs. He didn't know how to read at all, he didn't know how to write at all. But at the end of my 2 years with him, that's him sitting there with the storybook that he's written about friendship. And through his book, he's talking about what he thinks of a friendship and how people shouldn't change to make friends, but be who they are. And a true friend accepts you. Recently, when I got in touch with Sapna, the Teach for India fellow who's still in his class, she told me that Mihir is still writing, but now he's writing his opinions. He's writing about what he thinks of dowry, because that's something that he's going to face in his community. And he's writing about how he doesn't ever want his mother to make him take dowry when he comes to get married. So really what I did in my class was, yes, taught him to read and write, but it drove some change. And Sapna is empowering him some more. Similarly, there are other fellows. That's Ankur. He's a fellow in Pune who started this program called Just for Kicks with his kids, and I think this picture just brings out so well what Just for Kicks was. It started off as a football program for his classroom of kids, but it's really been teaching children all about teamwork and caring for each other. And his group of kids went and taught football to other schools and other children across and empowered them to play football. And today Just for Kicks is a league across Bombay and Pune that brings kids together. Similarly with Chaitra, she taught this group of children in 2010 when she joined Pune. Her kids, at the end of 2 years, had planned and set up this beautiful Charlie and the Chocolate Factory musical for 1,000 people. Coming from a community where they faced violence at home, they faced a lot of poverty, they often didn't have their complete meals to eat. But these kids showed us what hard work can do. They took the challenge upon themselves, they pushed themselves, and they sang and danced and put up this entire musical in complete English. And Chaitra really was the one to drive that change in the 2 years that she taught them. And what's more amazing is what Chaitra is doing now. She's working at Thermax, a corporate company in Pune, and she's setting up a teacher training institute for government teachers. And through that work, Chaitra is going to train more teachers who are then going to go out and train even more children and have this bigger impact on children. And then there's Gaurav. Gaurav joined the fellowship with me in 2009, and why I love this story so much is about what his student Wally wrote, but I'll come to that after I tell you about Gaurav. After teaching for 2 years, Gaurav went abroad and studied about what it takes to be a good school principal. He's come back, and this year he's taken on a municipal school at Crawford Market in one of those communities. His school is above a fish market, and it's over there that he's teaching 80 kindergarten children from that community. That letter is from Wally. I'm going to zoom into one piece of it, and I'm going to point out what Wally said. Wally says how Gaurav Bhaiya has inspired him. This is when Wally was in the 6th grade. Inspired him to want to change the world as well. And he said, I have decided, like Gaurav Bhaiya, I will also make the world educated. And I will be the glue for children who just desire the school. And so Gaurav in his 2 years not only taught him, but has empowered him to also think about the change that Wally wants to make when he grows up. And this is really what we believe is going to happen with our kids if we continue this. And we have proof of this with Rajshri Didi and Seema. Seema was a young girl who grew up in the chawl of Worli. She did not want to come to school. Her parents didn't want her to come to school. They were just waiting to get her married as soon as she was of age. Rajshri Didi was her teacher then. She would go to her house every single day and make Seema come to the Akanksha center so Seema could learn. After a long time, not only did Seema finish school, Seema also finished college. And then Seema joined the Teach for India Fellowship. And the reason she joined the fellowship was because she said, Rajshri Didi, my teacher, changed my life. She's put me on this different life path, and I want to be that for children as well. I want to be the person who can empower other children, just like Rajshri Didi did for me. And now Seema graduated the fellowship, and she's joined 3 to 1, the school that Gaurav set up as well. And all of these alum at 3 to 1 are going to make this a reality for so many more children now who come into the school at Crawford Market. So what started with one teacher went to Seema, and now from Seema she's working with children who come from very similar backgrounds as her. And that really makes me believe in the power that a teacher can have on students. And not only on the students that they teach, but on the students that when they grow up, what they're going to do with their lives. And if you still don't believe me, I want to share something that I recently read. This quote, I learned more from her than any other teacher. And if it hadn't been for her, I would have surely gone to jail. I don't know how many of you in your wildest imagination would realize that this was Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said this about his teacher. And just imagine what our world would be like today. Both of these laptops, computers here wouldn't be here if Steve Jobs had gone to jail. And the only reason he did, according to him, was because of his teacher. But his teacher wouldn't have known what Steve Jobs was going to be when she believed in him. And she drove that change in his life. She empowered him as a student. And Steve Jobs grew up to do all the amazing things that he did. He's number 1 on that list, by the way, of the most influential people in the world. And he's changed the lives of so many people around the world. And that's why we've come to believe that teaching really is leadership. It's not only about what we teach in terms of academics, but it's about the change we're driving in our kids. It's about the empowerment we're giving our kids. And at Teach for India, we believe that through that process of teaching, driving change, of empowering children, we are developing as leaders who can then go on and make bigger change outside. And this is what I see today. 200 of our alumni are across the 5 cities that we work in. And it's this movement of leaders. It's all of these leaders who are coming together with all of this deep understanding of what it took to change a child's life. And they are setting completely new ways for us outside of their sectors. So whether it's in the school that Gaurav set up, or in the community in Rajasthan that Saurabh is working in, or in the school that Rahul Gupta is leading, these 200 alumni, and there's more and more increasing every year, are really going to be the ones who drive that change and who lead the way outside of education and across our country. And hopefully, in a couple of years, people like me and other Muslim families won't take a year to find a house, because people won't be looking at us and won't be judging us for our religion or for our caste or for our income, but seeing us as the people we are. And this might seem like a completely crazy idea that a bunch of people who have no authority, they have no position and no power, that they're going to lead change. But I truly believe that this is possible. And if you still don't think so, look at this. That's why I believe that people, regardless of position, authority or power, are the ones who are going to lead change. And they're the ones who are going to empower more people to lead that change.